What drives a child to kill? In today's episode, we delve into the unsettling journey of Mary Bell, a child whose actions in the late 1960s sent shockwaves across the globe and continue to haunt us to this day. Born into a world recovering from the scars of war, Mary's story unfolds in the suburbs of Newcastle, England, a place overshadowed by its burgeoning industries yet crippled by poverty and neglect. This setting, marked by contrasts where new wealth and old hardships collide, sets the stage for a series of events that challenge our understanding of innocence and evil. As we strip back the layers of this chilling tale, we'll confront uncomfortable truths about what can push the mind of a young child towards acts of severe violence. From a troubled family life to the societal neglect she endured, each element offers a piece of the puzzle. Join us as we explore the dark corners of a child's mind in a story that is as profound as it is horrifying. Mary Bell's story begins in 1957 in a decrepit corner of Newcastle, England, where she was born into chaos. Her life from the start was framed by the shadows of a dysfunctional family and an environment that was anything but nurturing. Her father was a ghost in her life, rarely present, and when he was, it was nothing but trouble. Her mother, Betty, was often described as unstable and erratic, plagued by mental health issues and caught in the throes of her own tumultuous life. The relationship between her parents was fraught with absence and neglect, setting a grim stage for Mary's early years. Growing up in Scotswood, a suburb marred by poverty and crime, Mary's surroundings mirrored her home life. Post-war England was a place of supposed recovery, but Scotswood lagged behind, its streets lined with dilapidated housing and its residents suffering from a lack of basic amenities. The neighborhood was a stark illustration of urban decay where children learned to navigate a landscape filled with hazards both physical and social. In such an environment, young Mary would forge her path, one that would eventually lead her down a dark and infamous road. From an early age, Mary Bell exhibited behaviors that unnerved those around her. Signs of her troubling path began to manifest clearly in her interactions with other children. Before the age of 10, Mary was known among her peers for her aggressive tendencies. She was often involved in altercations that went beyond the usual childhood scuffles. Reports from those years tell of chilling incidents where Mary attempted to choke another child and showed a peculiar fascination with causing harm. Mary's violent impulses were not random bursts, but rather a disturbing pattern. Teachers and neighbors recounted instances where her actions seemed calculated, displaying a worrying level of sophistication for her age. She manipulated play scenarios to create opportunities to hurt others, often coaxing younger children into isolated spots where she could assert her dominance without adult interference. The first notorious incident that drew broader attention occurred when Mary was just 10 years old. In an act that foreshadowed her later crimes, she lured a young boy away from a playground with the promise of sweets. The unsuspecting child, trusting and naive, followed Mary to a secluded area. The boy was later found by a local, disoriented and bruised, in a state that indicated he had been physically assaulted. Though he was quickly returned to safety, the incident left the community shaken and marked the beginning of serious concerns about Mary Bell's inclinations toward violence. In 1968, the disturbing undercurrents of Mary Bell's behavior culminated in two horrifying acts of violence that would etch her name into criminal history. The first of these tragedies unfolded on a seemingly ordinary day when Martin Brown, a 4-year-old boy, was found dead. The circumstances of his death were mysterious. No visible signs of violence were apparent, leaving authorities puzzled. Martin's lifeless body was discovered in an abandoned building, an eerie setting that added a chilling layer to the tragedy. Initially, the lack of physical evidence led to speculation about accidental causes, but the community was soon to learn the darker truth. As the investigation into Martin Brown's death stuttered, another unsettling event occurred. Mary, along with a friend, broke into a local nursery. Inside, they left behind messages that both baffled and alarmed investigators. Scrawled on a notepad, the words "I murder so that I may come back" were found alongside other disturbing notes, hinting at a macabre fascination with death and claiming responsibility for killing. This act of breaking and entering, combined with the ominous messages, began to paint a sinister picture of Mary's psychological state. The full extent of Mary's violent tendencies was horrifically showcased in the murder of Brian Howe, another young boy, later that same year. Brian was found dead, with clear signs of a brutal attack. Unlike Martin's case, Brian's body bore the marks of strangulation and further mutilation. His hair had been cut, and his legs were marked with nicks and scratches, post-mortem injuries that spoke to a grotesque curiosity and detachment. Mary's involvement was direct and active, a fact she later chillingly confessed to. Her actions were not just those of a participant, but of an orchestrator, displaying a chilling lack of empathy and a disturbing degree of control over the situation. These crimes, particularly the murder of Brian Howe, shattered any lingering doubts about the severity and intentionality of Mary Bell's actions. Her arrest and subsequent trial would bring little solace to a community shattered by the realization that such heinous acts could be committed by one so young. The crimes of Mary Bell reached their grim conclusion when the police, after gathering enough circumstantial evidence and witness testimonies, arrested her along with Norma Bell, no relation, who was implicated as an accomplice. During interrogations, the dynamics between the two girls began to reveal the extent of Mary's influence and control. Their statements were fraught with contradictions. Each attempted to shift blame to the other, but eventually, Mary's calculated demeanor began to crumble under the weight of evidence, leading to her confession. The trial of Mary Bell was a landmark in British legal history. At just 11 years old, she was charged with 2 counts of manslaughter, a decision that ignited a fierce debate across the nation about the capacity of a child to understand and commit murder. The public and media grappled with a mixture of horror and pity, struggling to comprehend how someone so young could exhibit such malevolence. The psychological evaluations conducted during the trial painted a picture of a girl with classic symptoms of psychopathy, showcasing a profound lack of empathy and remorse. These findings only added to the controversy, complicating the legal proceedings as experts debated on the appropriate sentencing for a child murderer. The case of Mary Bell has left a lasting imprint on the legal system and the field of child psychology, challenging perceptions and pushing for reforms in how young offenders are treated and rehabilitated. Her story raises unsettling questions about nature versus nurture, the limits of accountability in young children, and the potential for rehabilitation. Such cases push us to explore the darkest chapters of human behavior, compelling us to seek understanding even in the midst of our revulsion. For more deep dives into the murky depths of criminal history, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to stay updated. What could possibly reform a mind so young yet so troubled? As we continue to explore these complex intersections of law, psychology, and morality, the debate continues reminding us of the delicate balance between justice and redemption.